Good afternoon and welcome to VivaTech, Europe's largest startup and tech event. My name is Nadia Shambi and I'm delighted to be your host here on stage 3. Thank you for being with us. Now this afternoon we're going to be furthering yesterday's topic about scaling up, exploring topics ranging from responsible investment to leveraging global expansion opportunities. And as a reminder, a number of these sessions, including the one that's about to begin now, are interactive. So if you'd like to take your questions to our speakers, don't hesitate, don't be shy. You go straight to the app, the VivaTech platform, and then you go to the drop-down menu entitled Interactive Sessions with Slido. That's the tab, and you can go to stage 3, and in there you can start typing away your questions. As you listen, don't hesitate. I have the iPad ready to take your questions, so be a part of this interactive event. Having said that, without further ado, let's get started with our first session. Startup Ecosystem, Taking the Pulse in Africa is its title. And please join me in welcoming to the stage Somachi Chris-Asoluka, CEO of the Tony Elumelu Foundation, and Oriol Kolo, partner of VivaTech Africa Ventures. Hello to you both. Thank you so much for being with us.
Hi, thanks Nadia. Lovely to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
It's lovely to have you. So perhaps we could start by you each telling us a little bit about what it is that you do. Do you want to start us off, Ari?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here. It's nice to be on an all-women panel as well. My name is Oriol Kolo. I'm a partner at VivaTech Africa Ventures, which is a Pan-African growth stage focused fund. We back entrepreneurs pre-Series A and Series A+. We're sector agnostic and really trying to be truly Pan-African. We've done 8 investments so far. Other than being a partner at VivaTech Africa Ventures, I sit on several boards, including Safaricom, East African Breweries Limited, and Deloitte Africa. Good to be here.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Tell us about yourself.
Thanks, Nadia. I'm the CEO of the Tony Elumelu Foundation, the largest philanthropy in Africa, empowering young African entrepreneurs from all 54 African countries. Since 2015, we've funded over 18,000 African entrepreneurs who have created 400,000 jobs and generated over $3 billion in revenue. And we've also trained 1.5 million young African entrepreneurs, and I'm here at VivaTech to enter into new partnerships to fund additional young entrepreneurs.
Wonderful. Well, let me jump off that and ask you, your foundation broadly supports entrepreneurship, as we've just heard. Those are some amazing figures. Are there sectors that you're specifically bullish for?
Thanks, Nadia. At the Tony Elumelu Foundation, we believe that all sectors have the potential to unlock prosperity in Africa. And so we're sector agnostic. We fund entrepreneurs across all sectors. Our business management training is contextualized for as many sectors as possible on the continent. But that being said, we do see a lot of entrepreneurs who apply to our program in agriculture. So about 50% of all the young African entrepreneurs in our program are in agriculture. Other popular sectors are the green economy. A lot of young African entrepreneurs are now into recycling, waste management, environmental startups, etc. We also have healthcare, education, fashion, and retail on our program. But again, we're sector agnostic. We're excited to fund entrepreneurs from all sectors on the continent, and we're happy to train, mentor, and grant these entrepreneurs access to new markets and access to new capital.
Amazing. So many sectors there represented. Ori, are there patterns that you've noticed in the sort of pitches entrepreneurs send to you?
Yes, they are. And similar to the foundation, we are also, like I said, sector agnostic. The only lens we apply is that you have to be tech-enabled, growth stage, and the ability to scale and have impact. That being said, there is a thesis and a lens that we use to look in terms of entrepreneurs, which I'll speak about later. In terms of who then comes to us, financial services, fintech, infrastructure is still the highest volume. And I'll say why. It's not because it's very sexy or it's hot, and that's where the investors are. Outside of key markets, there is still a lot of infrastructure that needs to be built in financial services. in many places, especially in North Africa, Francophone Africa, mobile money penetration is less than 20%. Underbanked population is still huge, and cash is king. And so if you don't resolve or build, it's the same way for other sectors. You need roads first and then electricity. In the tech space, we still have a lot of financial infrastructure to be built. And this is not just inclusion. This is not just mobile money. It's payments, it's cross-border, it's managing FX. And it's such a critical layer for all of the other businesses to emerge. So we still see there's a lot to be built in financial services. That being said, we do strive to be a very diversified fund. And so actively looking, and we see opportunities in insurance. Insurance penetration across the continent is at 3% max across all insurance verticals. Logistics. So there was a first wave of hot logistics companies, what we call Logistics 1.0. Everyone thought we're going to come in, we'll digitize, we'll do a marketplace. Nobody knows what they're doing, and then they realize actually there is a reason why brokers and middlemen still dominate logistics. So what you're seeing now is a lot more nuanced players in logistics who are picking either freight or who are focusing on B2B or are focusing on long haul and not trying to solve for everything. So we're very excited about what we call Logistics 2.0. Third volume, I'd say, is health tech. Same, everyone started off thinking we can solve health. It's a big crisis. A lot of spend in many African countries goes to health. In Kenya, if you look at the spend from, and this is personal, you get onto WhatsApp, you form a WhatsApp group, you raise money. It's actually equivalent to the spend that goes into national health insurance. So there's a lot of inefficiencies in healthcare across the chain. What has been most successful has been pharmaceuticals, organizing that. The biggest opportunity we see is around primary healthcare. So diagnostics, sort of that first level of saying, rather than treat things at the end, how can we get smarter about early affordable diagnosis and pairing that with affordable insurance? So we think health tech is very exciting. Last, very personal to me, I think we should be funding women entrepreneurs in the businesses that they're in. And not the businesses we think they should be in, and not advising them to death. So I feel if you look at the spend on beauty, on hair, on weddings in Africa, it's significant. If you look at the exit opportunities, very significant. L'Oreal is spending a lot of money trying to come into our market, and we have to be asking, what are they seeing that we're not seeing? So I think there's an opportunity around consumer tech, and not tied to some random middle class number. I think across all income levels, and particularly with women, we're not tapping into where women spend, and we're not digitizing that. And so I'm very excited to be looking at, or we're very excited to be trying to uncover opportunities around the female consumer in particular.
That's fascinating. Do you have similar patterns, Somachi?
No, absolutely. You know, what she said about women entrepreneurs on the continent is spot on. Last year alone, over 70% of our entrepreneurs were women.
Wow.
So we disbursed over $16.5 million to women entrepreneurs across the continent, out of the 5,000 entrepreneurs we funded last year. And I think that women are starting very exciting businesses. But more interesting, I feel, is those of us in the ecosystem who are there to support these women have to understand their specific needs. So a lot of women on the continent balance business ownership and running a family. And so what we've done at the foundation is contextualize our program, our training, to meet the women where they are. So we're able to share with them role models who have, successfully run businesses and balanced families. We're able to give them the training at their own pace, at their own time. We're able to go to them where they are. So we have workshops in different communities across the continent. We're able to appoint mentors who wear their shoes and who understand what it is to be an African woman running a business and running a family. Our women entrepreneurs are driving the pace. At the onset of COVID-19 on the continent, a lot of our women entrepreneurs rose to the challenge. And so many of them who were in fashion converted their warehouses into producing masks. lots of them started to, who were education, started to run campaigns going from village to village, community to community, enlightening their communities around the virus, around how to stay safe, around how to protect themselves and their loved ones. You know, we have women entrepreneurs in agriculture who are revolutionizing the space, who are now looking at how we can use drones to spread fertilizer, who are looking how to build new warehouses to decrease the number of fruits and vegetables that rot on the continent, who are now bringing technology to bring the farm to fork, who are, you know, using very creative means to transform agriculture and what we know it as on the continent. Another sector we have a lot of women in, obviously, is education. A lot of women are building new schools, and not just brick and mortar schools, but bringing schools to iPads, to computers, to phones everywhere, and educating millions of young Africans who otherwise would not have that access. You know, with our partnership with the European Union last year, we were able to fund an additional 2,500 women African entrepreneurs, and we were able to uplift around 100 of them who are already in our program by giving them access to additional grants of 50,000 euros each. Now, let me tell you a good story. With the 50,000 euros one of our entrepreneurs received, she wants to start the Starbucks of Africa. But before that, in Lagos, she was importing all her cocoa. But now with the 50,000 euro grant, she went to the farms in northern Nigeria, and she now has women farmers growing that cocoa for her. So now she's not only starting a business that's set to be the Starbucks for Africa, she's now empowering women farmers in northern Nigeria to send their children to school, to get better access to healthcare for their families, to protect their families, and, you know, empowering communities across Nigeria. So that's the type of, you know, value chain support that our entrepreneurs, especially the women, build. That's the kind of support they give not just themselves and their families, but also to other women startups across the continent. We're very proud of our women entrepreneurs.
You can be. It's clearly a very virtuous cycle. And Ari, I'm just going to take a second there, because we talked about, you know, the idea of I was imagining farmers, men, if I'm honest, and you were saying that you had a lot of agriculture as well at your end. Is that a lot of women there too?
So are we seeing a lot of startups in agriculture?
Yeah. Are they women? Are there a lot of women in there?
I think both women and men. And I think the challenge, so there's opportunities at the smaller scale, but the challenge, and we've not really been able to figure it out, although you're seeing verticals again within agri-tech take off. What Africa needs is to move from smallholder farming to large-scale farming. And that's the opportunity for tech. We've been very obsessed with smallholder farming. One, because it's political, you know, you can't say no more small farms. Two, it's just a legacy that we've had.
Okay.
But the opportunity for farming, where we're seeing, and then it tends to have both men and women, is around large-scale farming. So you're seeing companies, and then everything around that, whether it's cold storage, whether it's more efficient fertilizer, whether it's IoT. So you're seeing companies like Twiga, Victory Farms, Apollo Agriculture, sort of doing mechanizing, organizing land, farming efficiently, increasing productivity. Agriculture is the biggest sector in the economy in Africa. But if you look at our productivity levels, they have not shifted since the 1970s. So big problem on productivity, big problem on imports because we're inefficient. So if there's a war in Ukraine, we're struggling, we can't feed ourselves. Number two. Number three, the cost of food is incredibly expensive in Africa. In Nairobi, the average person spends 50% of their income on food. Most African countries have the highest top 10 inflation rates. In Africa, it's primarily food. So if you're spending 50% of your income on food, you can't think about ed tech, you can't think about health, you can't think about insurance, you can't think about consumer. So we need to drop the cost of food and to make food production more efficient for all of the other sectors to thrive. But it's incredibly hard to do as a startup unless you're very narrowly focused. So we're seeing more companies focusing on productivity, but really takes a long time. You have to be very patient there.
And mentoring must be key as well. And let me ask you, we talked about, you know, sectors in which people are creating a lot. Are there sectors where there are fewer businesses?
I think I'll start, maybe you can jump in. Because the consumer wallet is stretched, everyone thinks they can solve for B2C, and then they realize, we need to make money first. So you're seeing a lot more B2B plays, direct to consumer or business to consumer, fewer companies in our part of the world. But I think, for me, the exciting thing about Africa is that there's so many problems to be solved, and the market's so potentially big. I guess we see fewer, like, how do you say, first world problem companies.
Yes.
So a blender that's robotic, that can, that don't talk back to you and things like that. So almost every company is solving a real problem, but you see less in the B2C.
Okay. And how about yourself?
Yeah, what I was going to say is I think years back we didn't see the great interest in green that we see today on the continent.
That's coming up.
I think that lots of African entrepreneurs are now very enlightened and are taking action against the climate crisis on the continent. You know, Africa, contributes the least to global warming, but we bear the brunt of the most negative impact of the climate crisis. And our entrepreneurs across the continent are not just allowing that to happen to them, but they're leading the charge in fighting global change on the continent. So we have entrepreneurs who are in green sustainable agriculture, who are in waste management, who are in recycling, who are in the labs coming up with solutions to combat the climate crisis. You know, African entrepreneurs are extremely responsible and extremely proactive, and they're not waiting for handouts. They're not waiting to be told what to do. They're looking in their communities and identifying the challenges and rising to stop those challenges and stem those challenges. At the foundation, our role is to support, encourage, mentor, and give them all the access and capital that they need. But then at the foundation, we also advocate very strongly to government across the continent to prioritize these young African entrepreneurs. They are the ones producing jobs. They're the ones generating wealth. They're the ones creating prosperity. They're the ones driving the charge in terms of putting Africa on the global map. And so we must prioritize them across all stakeholder groups by creating the right enabling environment, the right policies, the right laws, the right taxes. You know, encourage their creativity, not stifle their creativity. Don't put these African entrepreneurs in a box. Don't dismiss them. Don't disregard them. Don't ignore them. They're the ones who will transform the continent. I believe that so strongly. And because of how much our entrepreneurs have done in just a short time, you know, we started our TEF entrepreneurship program in 2015, and you will not believe these entrepreneurs have created over 500 million jobs on the continent. PwC, who is our consultant partner, expect that figure to double in the next 2 years. So these entrepreneurs are not waiting for their government to create jobs. They're the ones creating jobs. They're the ones fighting poverty across the continent. And it's our responsibility, not only as Africans, but all friends of Africa across the world, to prioritize and support and empower these young African entrepreneurs.
And you're representing and embodying that passion and empowerment so well.
This is what I do, and I so strongly believe
You believe it, and you can feel it. Now, moving on, in the aftermath of the FTX crash, obviously the excitement for the metaverse has clearly been cooling, and now there's a surge of interest in AI. Ori, what's your funding disposition right now? What are you excited to fund? What are you perhaps more cautious around currently?
So I'll speak about our thesis and then about AI. So we look at Africa through the lens of markets and entrepreneurs through the lens of markets. So the first category we look at is infrastructure. Are you an entrepreneur who's solving a gap on the infrastructure side? So this could be payments, this could be companies that are providing dispatch services, and most often than not, unfortunately, it's entrepreneurs who are solving a failure of public goods.
Yep.
Yeah, so ideally governments should be providing basic healthcare, they should be providing good education, and one day I hope that is resolved because nothing scales better than government. But until that happens, entrepreneurs are closing that gap. So we back companies who are doing that. And another example is one of our portfolio companies, Shuttlers, is doing a shared mobility play in Nigeria because of the failure of public transport there. The second lens we look at markets is companies who are solving inefficiencies in markets. So there could be solutions, but either they're very manual, they're very disaggregated, they're very inefficient. So logistics companies and so on play in this space. And the third is market creators. So these are entrepreneurs who are looking at the shifting African consumer. I won't repeat all the statistics you know, very young continent. Most of the labor force will come from us in the next 30, 40 years. The biggest market, etc. How we spend, you're seeing it already now, and I love Gen Zs. How we spend, how we consume, how we save, how we travel, how we take care of ourselves, what our ambitions are of this very young continent will shift. Whether you're earning $1 a day, whether you're earning $5,000 a day. And a lot of this is because of the internet. This is a very aspirational continent. I can't expect, they're not waiting. They're not like us who would wait until we're 60 to take our first vacation and who save to buy the first phone. They want nice things now. They want an aspirational life now. They want to live differently. So we believe there'll be startups and entrepreneurs who are solving for that emerging consumer market. Where does AI fit into this? Apple has banned the use of AI internally. I totally agree. AI is not a fad. It's kind of talking about, like, if you say, oh, what's the future of microprocessors or future of mobile or future of it? This is the next step of technology. It's not a phase, it's not a AI-powered whatever. In fact, in the next 2 years, every SaaS business will be generative AI. Yeah? So anyone who's pitching to me AI for this, not interested in, AI will be used either to enhance your productivity, to make your tools smarter, to hire less people, and so on. But it is technology. It's not a sector. It's not a phase. It's not a fad that will pass. It's the real thing. And so we don't look at AI as an opportunity. It's just the future of technology.
Yeah. It's a given.
It's there.
It's a given. Somachi, startups are big now in terms of investor interest. And I'd like to know if you have a tech startup play at TEF, are there any regions of interest in your program?
Yeah, I'll answer that. But before then, I just want to say something, in line with what Ari had just said. At the foundation, a lot of people come to us and ask us, instead of funding thousands of entrepreneurs every year, why don't you select about 50, 100 of them and then give them larger capital size instead of giving, smaller amounts to so many people? And at the foundation, we respond to that in threefold. So the first thing is, we're in the business of democratizing luck and creating opportunity. So we don't want to give the same startups who would otherwise get capital from VCs, from friends and family, from financial institutions. We want to support entrepreneurs that are marginalized, that are overlooked, that the markets don't want, that no one will give a chance. We want to be that conveyor of hope. We want to give them that luck and that hope that no one else, that no other institution would give them. So that's the first answer. The second answer is, if we did go by how brilliant the idea was or how ready for market the idea was, then we'll be supporting entrepreneurs in the same African countries. So off the top of my head, it'll be Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, over and over. And then we're also now increasing the divide inside the continent. We want to support entrepreneurs across all 54 African countries because we want to lift the entire continent. If we have a rich part of the continent and a poorer part of the continent, then we're all still going to be insecure because you're not going to be safe if your neighbor is not safe. If that prosperity is not shared across the continent, then we're in trouble. So we're very adamant at not supporting entrepreneurs in the big African, tech cities, but across the continent. So we have entrepreneurs from all 54 African countries in our program. And then lastly is, we're very focused on women entrepreneurs. Yeah. And we know that institutions traditionally, historically, have ignored a lot of women startups. And so if we went by the books, we will have fewer women who are getting empowered on our program. I just shared that last year we disbursed $16.5 million to African women. It's never been done before at that scale. We had over 8,000 women entrepreneurs on our program benefit from this funding, this training, and are now driving big businesses across the continent. If we went by the book, these women would continue to be ignored. Their families would continue to live under the poverty line. The children will probably not be able to access superior healthcare and education facilities. So we're in the business of democratizing luck, creating access to opportunity for thousands, not just a select few, and we'll be doing this for years to come. Last question you asked was on tech startups. So about 20% of entrepreneurs who've gone through our program identify as tech startups. But I think this number doesn't include those who don't see themselves as primarily tech, but who are in agriculture, who are in fashion, who are in retail, leveraging tech. But those who are purely tech startups, 20%. But we talk about tech-enabled startups, I think we'll be talking about 50, 60%.
Well, I would love to prolong this conversation further, but unfortunately we've run out of time. Thank you, Ori, so much for having been with us.
Thank you so much.
It's been absolutely brilliant having you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nadia, and thank you so much, everyone.
And stay tuned, we're going to be back in just 5 minutes. Thank you. Yes.